Buffalo Bills at the Carolina Panthers, also 7.5. This time the road team favored the Bills. Andy Dalton getting the start this week for the Carolina Panthers, who are now 4-3, just a half game behind Buffalo.
Yeah.
4-2, Buffalo Bills. So it's a big game. I wonder now. The Bills have the Chiefs next week. That's their annual
Super Bowl,
regular season Super Bowl. The Bills are in an interesting spot. They've lost 2 straight in disappointing fashion against Atlanta in particular, where they didn't really, I don't know, laid an egg against Atlanta, we'll say. Had a bye, had some players they're trying to get healthy. Now they're coming off the bye against Carolina, but they might have this look-ahead spot because they got to beat the Chiefs. Like, even if they lose this game, right, it's still playoff implications, home field implications, getting over the hump for the Chiefs. Like, their whole season often comes down to, beating the Chiefs, getting home field advantage, and finally getting over the playoff hump. Is this a look-ahead spot for Buffalo, even though they're coming off 2 losses?
I mean, I think Carolina has done enough so far this season to command their full attention, at least, right? To demand the respect of you can't ignore the Panthers, even if the Chiefs are looming on the horizon. They've got to at least pay attention to what the Panthers are bringing to the table. Carolina's going to be interesting with Andy Dalton at quarterback. Excuse me. We saw last year that when Bryce Young played himself to the bench and was so bad they had to sit him down, Dalton came in and immediately sparked the offense to life and looked pretty good. Theoretically, it's an upgraded cast around him now as well. So it's always tough, these backup quarterbacks that only play a game or 2 a year and then go back and you're like, well, does he pick up where he left off, or do you get Jake Browning this year? So I mean, Dalton's a better player than that, as a guy that had a pretty solid career as a starter, so it's not quite the same thing. But, I don't know that you can just assume that Dalton will come in and cook again. But all of a sudden, Tedero McMillan looks really good. Jalen Coker was eased back into the lineup last week. You would assume that ramps up a bit this week. Xavier Legette randomly has started to make a couple plays in the last few weeks. Much bigger game last week, but even the week before made a couple plays. Rico Dowdle looks fantastic running the ball. They've got that split backfield now with him and Chuba Hubbard. I don't know if that's going to continue or if they're going to lean more towards Dowdle, who's been the better player so far this year. But and the offensive line's pretty good. I mean, that is an offense to be taken seriously for a Bills defense that hasn't been amazing.
Dowdle's got a really good 3-week stretch. Of course, had the 2 monster games last week. A little bit lesser workload, but the Panthers doing a really good job getting him to the edge, getting his speed to the edge, a little toss sweep plays or pin and pull plays, and kind of outside instead of downhill power type plays outside, power play where you're trying to get it off to the edge where he could use his speed. They've done a really nice job with Dowdle, and then going up against the Bills' run defense that has been pretty poor. And so that's where I think if Carolina, I've been joking about them as a run the ball, stop the run type of team, but Derek Brown's playing outstanding up front. They do stop the run much better than they were earlier in the year. It's certainly better than they were last year. The Bills are still at their best. They're not a James Cook-led team, but they're at their best when they have all that balance, including James Cook, under center runs. If Carolina can, I hate this cliche, but let's make them one-dimensional. But what makes the Bills special is Josh Allen plus having non-Josh Allen ways to win. Shorten up the game. Slow down James Cook with your run defense. Give Dowdle a few more touches maybe against a bad Bills run defense, and I think you're at least keeping it close and then saying, okay, Dalton and Tedero and McMillan make some plays here. And I think the Panthers have a shot, and they are undefeated at home and playing much better football than they were the first couple weeks of the year.
Derek Brown, I think, is in the top 5 players of humans that I would least like to take a hit from in the NFL.
Yeah.
He just looks like he's strong and violent, you know what I mean, in a way that stands out even on an NFL field where everybody is strong and violent. That guy, maybe not so much for you. You're a bigger guy, but I feel like he would break me,
Taylor Lewan's afraid of me.
Yeah. I'm saying,
if that means anything.
It's like the Tua thing, right? When you see Tua get tackled by a large, strong human, you're like, there's a pretty healthy chance this breaks something. I feel like if Derek Brown got hold of me and threw me to the turf, something would snap.
Yeah.
I think I could take it from a few other defensive linemen, but Derek Brown, I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that smoke.
Hey guys, real quick, only 40% of our viewers are actually subscribed, so let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and now let's get back to the action. From Buffalo's perspective, just an interesting spot here, coming off of 2 losses against New England and Atlanta. Josh Allen in the offense not playing as well in recent weeks. Dalton Kincaid banged up. I mean, he was having a great season, but not having him. Like, they're injured on both sides of the ball. We'll see how healthy they are. A bunch of their players not practicing, not really sure who's going to be back coming off the bye. But Buffalo's at a pivotal spot here, not just because, like, from their perspective, they have a somewhat easy schedule. They have a legitimate competitor in the AFC East now, in the Patriots, who, look, at the end of the day, like, the Bills still might be a much better team than New England. But New England has an easier schedule. They're 5-2 versus Buffalo being 4-2. And as much as we talk about Buffalo looking to Kansas City, well, they still have to play Kansas City. New England doesn't have that type of game on their schedule. Yeah, Buffalo wants to get over the Kansas City hump, but they haven't dealt with an AFC East competitor. Maybe like once in the last 5 years they have, like when the Dolphins were pretty good a couple years ago and they brought it down to week 15, 16, whatever it was. So there's different mental hurdles, I would say, for Buffalo than in previous years.
Yeah, I mean, look, I kind of said that I made this point previously, and it irritates certain people, but I think it's kind of true again. You look at what the Falcons did to Josh Allen, right? Like they had Josh Allen in hell with that defense, and Atlanta's defense has done that a couple of times this season, but it hasn't been consistent. But like they had him all over the place. That was the worst game Josh Allen has played in a long time. The Bills' offense generally was shut down, and the Falcons caused all kinds of chaos with blitzing, with the pass rush they can bring to the table. The Panthers' defense is solid now. Like, it's gone from the worst defense in the NFL last year to being a pretty decent unit now. It doesn't have that level of pass rush, though, and it doesn't have, I don't think, that level of complexity either. But it is worth pointing out. Like, somebody had a tweet where they threw up the sort of defensive rankings, just the big picture ones. And it's like everything last year, certainly the first half of the season, 32nd, 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 32nd. This year, through the first half of the season, they are 8th in rushing yards they've allowed. They're 10th in passing yards they've allowed. They're 13th in points per game, and they're 5th in first downs that they've allowed. So this has gone from being the worst defense in the NFL to being a pretty solid, respectable unit. It's better against the run than it is against the pass. And I do wonder if that is significant for what it can do to Josh Allen.
And in the same thing that you mentioned about Atlanta causing problems for Josh Allen, they do that with their blitzing their linebackers, and they're winning up front as well. But they've done just a really nice job with their entire front seven getting after the quarterback. Carolina doesn't have the best 4-man rush, but they're bringing Trayvon Merrick playing in the box. He blitzed 5 or 6 times last week, caused some havoc against the Jets. I mean, they've been mixing it up, bringing their backers, bringing Merrick as a safety linebacker hybrid. Those are the types of things they need to do. I'm interested in the mental state of the Bills. 2 losses, a bye week, the Chiefs next week. You always recalibrate what your strengths and weaknesses are. Do they ever morph back into, especially if it is tough to run against Carolina, do they get back into Josh Allen Superman mode? There's times when they've needed Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer now, who's banged up, to win on the outside. If they don't have those guys winning, what are the answers? Is it just relying on Allen taking over? So I'm fascinated by what that looks like.
It's a pretty big game for Buffalo, I think. I mean, it's a big game for both sides. Like, if Carolina won this game, all of a sudden you're changing completely the narrative on Carolina. Like, without Bryce Young, Andy Dalton was able to go and beat Buffalo, who everybody expected to be a Super Bowl contender, and suddenly Carolina would be 5-3 in a division that's there to be competed for, and suddenly you're starting to think about like playoffs and all these kinds of things, right? It would be a genuinely like narrative-changing game for Carolina. It would also be the same thing, I think, in reverse for Buffalo. If they drop the game to Carolina, well, now you're talking about a multiple-game slide. Suddenly, this Super Bowl contender is looking like they're complete frauds. The Patriots might be favored for the division, and like the whole AFC East and AFC generally is upended. So, I mean, this is a really pivotal game, I think, for both teams.
Man, I think I've changed my pick here. I'm going to go, it's Buffalo by 7.5 here. On the road in Carolina, where the Panthers are undefeated at home. Where are you going with this one?
I'm going to go with Carolina to at least cover the line, even if I don't think they'll win.
Yeah, I think Buffalo's going to come back and play better than they did the last 2 weeks that we saw them. They played a sloppy game against New England and got beat up pretty bad by the Falcons. I think they'll play better. 7.5's a lot, though, in Carolina, where I think they can at least shorten the game with their run game. So I'll take Carolina to cover, even if Buffalo wins. Harry's taking Buffalo to bounce back here.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video.
Check the Mic is live every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing.
And the all-knowing algorithm is convinced you'll also like these videos, and who are we to argue?